So welcome to our Croptoberfest 2025 project workshop. I'm Megan Jax, and I'm also here with Tessa Chappell, and we are going to be putting together the project recipe as well as the project booklet. So you should have hopefully two sets of materials with you. I'm going to do the project recipe and walk you through that, and then Tessa will take over and she's going to show you how to put together all of those lovely layouts in the project booklet. So I'm going to switch over to my overhead camera and we will get started. So here is where we're headed. You have your papers, you have your stickers, and you have your directions. And we are only going to be cutting 4 papers. There is one little area that's going to take a little bit more, I don't know, time, technique. You will want circle number 3, which is our largest circle from the custom cutting trio patterns. You will also want your red blade. You're going to need that as well. And then you just want some adhesives and so forth. This is a pretty straightforward project recipe. I do want to show you one alternative, and this kind of just depends on how you feel about mums. And really the alternative comes into play is when you cut the plum paper here. So I'm going to show you, we have 2 different layouts we're going to be putting together. There's layout number 1. You can see uses the trellis background along with that pretty mum paper. And then we come over here to layout number 2. Now, layout number 1, you always have the option to flip your papers over. So I did that when I was practicing putting this together. I actually like to flip my papers over and just see what the possibilities are. So this is layout number 1. If you flip over the trellis paper and use the plum side, and instead of using the mum paper, we flip it over and show the yellow. So it just tones down the mum look a little bit, which maybe might be an option. Instead of using a sticker, I flip some papers over. I've got the mums up here. So you keep the mums in there, but it just tones it down. The one thing to note, though, is that when you do that, the plum paper, you could still come in with some of your plum mats, but I thought hot fudge mats worked better. So if you like this look, instead of cutting the plum paper for the mats, you might want to cut a piece of hot fudge or just wait on cutting your mats until you know which photos you're going to be using. For today's demonstration, I'm going to put it together as the booklet shows, but just know you can always flip your papers over when you're putting the project recipe together and mix and match the patterns if you want to make some adjustments to what's going on. The second layout, I pretty much stayed the same. I did flip some papers over just to tone down the mums. I just don't have a lot of use for the mums. It's not a flower that is going to be as part of my fall here in Arizona. So dialing it back just a little bit, coming in with more of the tonal pieces was a little bit easier for me to do. All right. So to get started, we are going to start off with the yellow mum paper. So it's yellow on one side, has the mums on the other. We're going to grab our trimmer and we are going to be making some 1-inch cuts first. These papers are largely non-directional, so you don't need to worry. We do use both sides, but both sides of the paper are non-directional, so it doesn't matter too much which direction you put your paper in. I'm going to start off with 1A and 1B, and those are 1-inch cuts. You might want to make sure if you check out your mat, your cutting mat here, just make sure you don't have too big of a groove. The bigger groove you have in your gray cutting mat is more likely you're going to have kind of frayed edges to your paper. So you might want to make sure you have a nice newer cutting line there. I'm going to cut 2 1-inch strips. These are pieces 1A and 1B. These we will be using with the yellow side up. Next, this piece that's left over, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. I need a 7-inch piece and a 5-inch piece. So it's going to be, I have my 12-inch length up here at the top. It's 12 inches wide by 10 inches tall. I'm going to line it up at 5 inches on my trimmer. And I'll go ahead and cut. Both of these pieces, we will be using the mum side if you follow their directions. So you can go ahead and flip those over to the mums and set those to the side. Next, we're going to be cutting another sheet of that same mum paper. And I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 more 1-inch strips. We're cutting 2A and 2B. lining that up at 1 inches. And again, these we will be showing the yellow, so I'm going to leave that over with the yellow side up in my little pile of yellow pieces. Now, after I've cut those two 1-inch strips, that's 2A and 2B, I need to cut 2C and 2D, which are 2-inch wide strips. So I'll come over here, measure it 2 inches, and I'll trim, and I'll make a second cut at 2 inches. These we will be using the reverse side. We'll be using the mums. So I'm going to flip those over, and I'm just going to toss these into my pile with the rest of the mum pieces. All of our pieces are pretty different from each other. So if you kind of toss it into a pile based on the pattern, it should be pretty easy to tell which pieces which when you go to actually put the layout together. Now, this last section is going to be a 6 by 12, and this is going to be for mats. Always when it comes to mats, in my opinion, you can wait to cut those. Here's where those mats are going to go. If you don't know which photos you're going to be using, you might want to hold off on cutting these mats. Maybe you're going to need some 4x4s. So if you don't know, you can wait. I will go ahead and cut these. It's 6 inches wide, so I'm going to rotate it and cut this into 4-inch segments. I'll have 3 4x6 mats. And these will be, as I showed, these will be used on the golden side. So put those over in my pile of yellow papers. Next, we are going to be cutting the green plaid paper. The reverse is the wood tone. We're going to start off. We need to cut 2 2-inch strips of paper. Now, there is a direction to the reverse side. The green has really no pattern direction to it, but here with the wood tone, it is directional. I can tell you that they cut this parallel to the wood grain. So if you want to look at your paper and you want to follow exactly how they've cut it in the guide, you would go ahead, have your grain going up and down, and then flip it over right to left and cut. I will tell you, it does not matter that much. It's just a little bit different of how the wood grain looks on one aspect of the border. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you cut it the wrong direction, it's not a big deal. So here we go. We're going to cut 2 pieces that are 2 inches wide. So 3A and 3B are 2 by 12. And I cut mine wrong. I cut mine at 2 1/4. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to cut this next piece. I'm going to cut it at 2. I will be making adjustments to my mat. So make sure you're cutting it at 2. I'm going to come back here, trim this down back to 2 inches. So I have my 2 2x2s or 2 by 12s. This next piece, I cannot compromise on this next piece. The next piece has the circles in it. It has to be 4 inches wide. So for me, I made the mistake, but I got to keep this one at 4 inches. If I don't keep it 4 inches, I can't get my circles in there. So it's at 4 inches, 4 inches. It stays 4 by 12. That is going to be piece 3C. You can see it's 4 by 12. So the last piece here is the one I've got my little boo-boo now on it. Instead of being 4 inches wide, it's only 3 3/4. But I'm going to go ahead and still cut that in half. So my version of 3G and 3H are going to be a little bit different, but yours hopefully are still that 4 inches wide. So it's going to be a 4 by 6. There we go. These will also be the green. The 2-inch pieces that we cut at the top, we're actually going to be using the reverse side. And so that's going to show the brown. I need to have my green mats. And then we have our 4 by 12-inch piece of green. So it does say, I see Marcia is asking about the circles. We are going to cut the circles next. So we're going to we'll use our circles. They are 3.5-inch circles. So if you're cutting those out, you can use 3.5-inch circles. Now, you're going to want to have your cutting mat available for this. We have our 4 by 12 piece of paper. I want you to center it on your cutting mat. So 6-inch here. So I'm lined up at the top. I can see the 8-inch and the 4-inch. I am centered. And the reason I want you to center it is just like we center our jumbo circle, we can mark our large circle. There are the same manufacturing dots. They're in here somewhere. There it is. See right there, that dot? I put a line. I rotate around, find the corresponding dot, which is on the outside edge there, and I put a line, and so forth. These are going to allow me to cut or to place. I can place my lines here at 6 inches, and then I need to follow this up and find the 6-inch. So that's what I'm going to do. I am using those 6-inch lines to help me center. I want to center my first cut. You can also reference internally. Let me just bring this up so you guys can see. If you look inside there, see where that paper is right there. I don't move how it is right here. See, I got a little bit of room right there. I'm going to come over here and I want to see just a little bit of room right there too. That tells me, reassures me that I'm centered on my paper. I can see where the outside edge of the strip is landing on my circle. You don't have to have exact precision, but it is helpful if you get it kind of close. We're going to use our red blade on the inside track to give us that 3.5-inch circle. Okay, there's our first piece. We'll be using the brown side. So toss this up with your brown, your pile of the brown stuff up here. All right, now I need to do one below. Now it gets a little bit easier to center this next one side to side because now I've exposed my 6-inch line. I can see down here at the bottom, I can see where my 6-inch mark is. I can see where my 6 inches at the top, but the problem is now, or not a challenge is, I don't know side to the top here because it's not like at 2 inches. It's a little bit off. I'm going to bring this down just a little bit for myself so I can see over the top. I don't want to get my head in the camera. And I can tell you what I'm looking for is I'm going to be at about maybe 2 1/8 inch up from the bottom. That's a rough estimate because that 1/8 inch line does not go all the way through. But what I'm looking for is I'm looking for where the top edge of that paper, see how I've just cleared those inside 2 rings? And I am kind of cleared at the bottom. I can maybe push it up a little bit. That's what's helping me line up top and bottom. So my 6-inch line, my marks on my template are marked with my Sharpie. They're lined up at 6 inches. And I'm looking at that ring. This top little groove here. I'm looking to see where that hits. I look pretty good. I'm going to make a slight adjustment up. And this is, again, you don't have to be super picky about it, but it's just helpful if they're a little bit evenly spaced. And go ahead and make that cut with your red blade inside track. Now you can do the same at the top. Similar concept. I can find my 6-inch line side to side. So I'm lining up my vertical axis here on my 6-inch line. And then I am coming in here and just making sure that I like my placement. I promise you guys, this is the hardest part. Once we're through that, it's all smooth sailing. Go ahead and cut. And there we should have all 3 of our, we've basically created a stoplight. So if you ever wanted to duplicate this, if you need a stoplight, here you go. You've got all the measurements and all of the things you need to create a stoplight with the green, yellow, red. Or in this case, we're going to be using it to do some lovely borders in the middle. All right, so that's the piece there. I'm going to stick this up with my green. And next up, we're going to be cutting our plum cardstock. And this is what I mentioned. If you wanted to do that alternate version that they showed at the very beginning, instead of using plum, maybe you want to grab a piece of hot fudge, or you could grab another color, just toss the plum into your cardstock stash and grab a color that's going to work better with your photos. If you're not sure what those photos are, you can wait on this part. We're going to be cutting 4 4x6 mats and then 3 4x4s. So I'm gonna come over here 4 inches. I'm just gonna cut it all into 4-inch strips right now. Bring out my arm. 2 of these pieces, 2 of these 4x12s, I'm gonna cut in half and sit. So 2 sets are 4 total 4x6 mats. And then here, I'll cut this into 4x4 squares. So now we have all of our mats cut, and we've actually done all of the cutting that we need to do for the project recipe. Now it's going to be time to go ahead and jump here into actually putting everything together. Well, let's start with layout number 1. What are the pieces we're going to need? We are going to need 2 of our trellis paper. We're going to need all 4 of our 4x6 plum mats, and then we need 2 of these square mats. This third one will actually be used in the second layout. We need 1 of our wood toned 2x12 strips. We need 1 strip of our golden 1x12 strip, and then we need our 2 bigger, chunkier pieces of the mum paper. And then we also will use all 3 of our wood circles. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put my layout on my paper, or excuse me, I'm going to put my background pieces on my cutting mat, because we do need to do a little bit of lining up. We have to line up some pieces. So we're going to be using, we're going to be adhering the larger, chunkier pieces. The mums are going to sit here 1 inch from the top and bottom, so they'll be centered on the page, and they're going to be flush with the inside edge. So you can see here, flush with that inside edge, 1 inch from the bottom and the top. Now, you do need to be able to add in your little circles. So if you want to, just don't put a lot of pressure in some of the areas. I had to come back in with my multi-purpose tool to kind of lift up. We're going to be adding a circle down here and a circle up here, but it was easy enough to pry up those pieces if you didn't already add the circles there. I felt like I needed to put the bigger pieces in place, and then I could put my circles in where they needed to go, using the larger pieces to reference their placement. Next, we need to go ahead and create our border. We're going to go ahead and add our yellow strip to our wood grain piece. And it just goes right down the middle. Be a little generous with your adhesive. You're going to be cutting this piece into 2 sections. So we're going to go ahead, and it goes right down the middle. And then we will want to grab our stickers. We need to use one of our mum border stickers, and it goes right down the middle as well. And then we're going to cut this piece in 2 sections, a 5-inch section and a 7-inch section. So I'm going to cut it at 5 inches. The 5-inch piece gets placed over here on the left, the left page, and the 7-inch piece goes over on the right page. And you have a little bit of flexibility where you want to put those. I would say maybe a 1/4 inch down from the top here. So if you want to line them up at 1 1/4 from the top of the page, you could do so. Whenever you use your cutting mat to help you with lining things up, just make sure you've keep it centered. Mine was a little bit off. And now it's time to go ahead. We can kind of plop our circles on. I can just kind of put, I think, where they're going to go. As I mentioned, one will go under this piece over here. Determine how you want your wood grain to go. And then this piece is going to sit up here at the top. Once I get those circles in place, I'm just going to put some adhesive down. And then you put the rest of your mats in place. Now the two square mats go on the right page. And I'm not pushing them down super tight right now. I'm just kind of laying them on there. And then I'll come in with my 4x6 on the left page. And what I'm looking for here is I want to make sure that they're equal across. So we want to, you can go ahead and push your papers together so you can make sure they're lined up top and bottom. And then I am looking to make sure that there is a nice clean line coming across to both pages. And once I like the positioning of all four of these mats, I can go ahead, push them down and put them firmly into place. Like I said, if you don't know what you're using, you can go ahead and just leave your mats off for now. And then we have a mat that's going to go over on this side, a 4x6. These hold 3.5 by 5.5 inch photos. We need these mats or these little circles to help give us a spot to put our embellishments, because we are working with a little bit more of a patterned paper. Behind here, it's helpful to have those the brown circles to give us a place to put our embellishments, or excuse me, our stickers. All right, so there we go. That is layout number 1. And then of course you can add your stickers as desired. You can see on the guide where it gives you where you can put the fence, the harvest sign, and then up there at the top. This is a nice example where they show you the trio of embellishment clusters where you can kind of have the 3 can be very pleasing on a page. So there we go. That is layout number 1. Layout number 2. We're going to be using 2 different background pieces. We're going to use our gingham, or excuse me, our plaid, I guess, not really a gingham. Is it a gingham? I don't know, the plaid. And then we're going to come in with they call it green gingham, the caramel cardstock. These are our 2 base pages. And now we'll be using the rest of our papers. They come in with the 2-inch mum strip. Note the right and the left side are a little bit different. On the right side over here, we're actually going to use our 1-inch strip of mum paper on the outside edge, and then come in with the yellow 1-inch strip on the outside, the 2-inch strip of mums closer to the middle. And over here, that's reverse. We've got the 2-inch mum piece on our outside edge with that yellow golden piece next to it. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in place. You can make adjustments as needed. My sample that when I put this together, as I mentioned, I wanted to just tone down the amount of mums shown. I love the colors. I really do like these colors. I just don't need quite as much emphasis on the floral. So it was easy for me to just flip some of the papers over and dial that back a little bit. In Washington, I used to be able to get the mums, and I don't know, maybe I can find mums here. I honestly don't know. I have to think back whether my mom had some mums or not at the Thanksgiving time. Last year, I was still so I don't know, a little discombobulated in the fall that I wasn't really into fall decor outside of Halloween. My neighborhood enjoys decorating with various lights. And so getting Halloween decorations up was a big, big thing. So we've got those pieces in place. Now, this strip is going to come in next. That's our next piece that we'll be putting in, but we do need to create the border that we ultimately will be cutting up and putting here. So to do that, it's the same border we just created, where we take our wood strip, we're gonna come in with our yellow, it's gonna come on top, it's centered. This is the one you definitely wanna have some decent amount of adhesive. We're gonna be cutting this into 4-inch strips. You may find that you actually have to come back and add more adhesive once we cut it into those 4-inch segments. That was what I had to do. Our sticker from our stickers, the border sticker from the sticker pack will go right down the middle. And again, if you need to dial back the mums, save this sticker for another project, put a fun chain border down the middle, that'd be really pretty. This piece then gets cut into 4-inch segments. So this is where you can test and see, like, do the pieces, the end pieces stick up? And I got good. I did good on this time. I don't have any ends that are flopping up. So now I found the best way to do this was you can actually come in and put your first one in place easy enough because it centers at 6 inches. And so this wood piece is 2 inches tall. So you can actually put this one in place first. You're going to line it up the 6 right down the middle. On the side here, you'll see the 5 and the 7. That will tell you that you have it nice and centered and straight. You do want to have it flush with this inside edge. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do here is I'm going to put some adhesive on these 4 middle sections here. And I'm going to place everything in. I'm going to put my piece on here. And I'm going to put pressure in those 4 places where I put adhesive. My top and my bottom, I can get things in and out of. And that's important because that makes it easier to slide these borders down and get them centered where you want them to be. So I'm not putting any pressure. I have my adhesive on there, but I've got not a lot of pressure and I can move them up and down. And I'm looking to get them centered as much as possible. If I have some excess sticking out over on this edge, that's fine. I can trim that off. I do not want to see any of that border coming out over here. Once I like it, put pressure there, and then I can come in and add some adhesive in the corner. Put that down, and I'll repeat the same at the bottom. Lift up. Looking to get that centered. I don't want to see any border on that inside edge. I want it over here. Put pressure, and then there we go. So now, next up for me would be to add my borders. And I said, these are, the mats. And this is again where I said I messed up my borders. My mats are going to look a little short compared to yours. But you can see where you've got some options to be able to make adjustments if you need to have vertical photos. If you want to have more photos here, there's room for that. And then on this side over here, the right page, we can see where we have our 4x6 mats. You will want to have a little bit more of a narrow edge here. You want to be able to get both of those mats in the entirety of the green. You don't want to like necessarily overlap like this. You want to be able to come in with all on the green. Then you come in with your horizontal photo, and the plum mat gets angled a little bit. I will say that I do like the plum here. I think when I was cutting my pieces, I did opt to use a plum mat. I like that nice pop of color. Doing the same here, getting my mats. I like to do this with my mats where I just don't put a lot of pressure on. That even if you're using the permanent adhesive, as long as you don't put a ton of pressure, you can kind of move things around. Get it situated the way you want. Like I need to bring my mats down from the top a little bit. Once I like that, I am using that gingham pattern to help line things up. It is nice that they did that. And then I can come in over here. Angle that piece on. So you've got some 3.5 by 5.5 inch photos for these bigger pieces, and then 3.5 by 3.5 inch square over here. And then of course, there's all the embellishments that you can offer, or excuse me, the stickers. You will use all of the stickers on this sticker sheet. When you're done, you will not have any left. So you can see some of those mums that come here in the stoplight piece, I guess, I don't know. And then the other stickers get scattered around there as well. Using some foam squares is going to be a great way to pop and give some dimension to those stickers. And so I think that's a great option. So here are the two layouts. And then just really quickly, I want to show, I know a few of you may have been a little late coming in. I wanted to show the alternative, excuse me, to this one is you can come in and use the back sides if you want to tone down that the mum paper a little bit and not use the trellis. The back side of that trellis is the plum paper. All right. So that was pretty quick. That layout went together really quick, though. I did like that the little stoplight thing. That was a little bit of an added, I want to say complexity, because I don't think it was overly complex, but I do think it took, I don't know, it was right up my alley. If you had noticed, I like that kind of stuff where we're lining things up. It just gives me a lot of delight. So I am going to pass you back to Tessa now, and she's going to walk you through the rest of the project booklet.
Okay, yeah, I did like that project recipe. It was pretty. I put that together actually a couple weeks ago before my retreat. I just didn't get this booklet done, but I put it together this week, and I think it is pretty easy to follow. So if you're cutting and whatnot today, I think you might be able to keep up. It's not too involved. We'll flip down. Okay. I finally figured out my issues with my table from Power Hours. I'm a little bit more zoomed in. You can't see the hot mess. So what you'll need for the booklet, the project booklet, you'll need the cardstock sampler. All of these are the base papers for the layout. So you don't need the sampler right now. We'll need that after we do the cutting. Then we have the Croptoberfest mats. I keep calling these mini. They're not mini, they're 0, but they're the layered embellishments. Plus the regular embellishments, but we'll work those in as we go. The mats you might want to keep close because I did put these on as I went through the putting the layouts together, but the embellishments I did towards the end. Some people like to do it as we go, some towards the end to sort. And then the accessory paper pack. This is 6 sheets. You do need to note there is some similarity on one side. On the back side, you're going to see green, plum, and brown. Those are easy to differentiate. But when you flip these over, you're going to notice that the green and the plum all have the same floral print on the front. And so when we are pulling out our papers to cut, you need to pay attention to the back side also. You can't just cut based on the floral that you see on the top. So we're going to start cutting these 6 sheets up. So you can set your cardstock to the side. And then you'll want your project booklet. It came with a bundle. And we're going to start with page 1 of the cutting guide. So you just need your trimmer to start. You know that creative memory suggests getting out a bunch of Post-it notes and keeping track that way. I prefer just to make piles on my table. I'm a pile girl. And so you'll want space somewhere around you to make 5 piles or somehow to keep track, because I like to sort my pieces as I go through the cutting. It's easier for me to keep track of them that way. The first 2 pieces that we're going to cut are the ones with the floral with the green vines on the back. So they'll have green on the back. We do need to pay attention to the direction of our papers on every piece that we cut. So make sure you have the green on the back, the green vines, and then we're going to orient it so you have your floral cluster in the bottom left, like they show you on here. However, we do need to turn it to cut it. We need all of these 1-inch strips and then 2 half-inch strips. I like to cut my 1-inch strips on this side of the paper, or on this side of the trimmer, excuse me. So when I turn the paper, might help if you turn your hand out. So the flowers will be in the top left corner, and then I'm going to start cutting these 1-inch strips and then the half-inch strips off the side. So there's 4 1-inch strips to start. Oops. And yes, Sandy, I'm sorry. I have miles of piles all over my room in here. Someday soon, and I've been saying this for about 5 years. Someday I hope to actually get through all of the piles. Not that I don't want to get through them, it's just life moves too fast. Then I need 2 half-inch strips. So remember that half-inch strip is the longest line right before the I and the N. Right before the N, that long line is the half-inch mark. And I need 2 of these. And then we have this big piece left. So to sort my pieces, the 2 little half-inch pieces are going to go with layout number 2. The rest of these are going to go with layout number 1. So I'm going to start some piles off camera. I have the 4 1-inch in the big one piece in my number 1 pile. I have the 2 half-inch in my number 2 pile. And I'm going to move on to paper number 2. It's the same one, the green vines on the back. I have my flower in the left bottom corner, but the first cut I need to make is 8 inches. So that means I need my arm out. Cut at 8 inches. Then I need to rotate this 90 degrees. I want to cut 1 inch here off the top of the light area. I do really like this paper. I like that it was not solid. I like the texture in the neutral light tone. Both of these pieces, 2A, 2B, are going to go with layout number 4. If you want to scoot them over. Then I have the 4-inch piece left, and this I'm going to cut in half. So we're going to have 2 4x6 mats. These mats are going to go with layout number 2, which is the pile where you just put your half-inch strips. So wherever you put those with your half-inch strips. When you've cut those 2 pieces, we're going to move down to the floral with the plum stripes. They start out with the orange of the flower cluster in the top right. But when you look at your cuts, we need a 1 inch and then a 4 and then a 7. I don't love to cut my paper this way. I like to cut the small ones over on the right side, like I said, but in the interest of keeping it easy to follow, I'm going to cut a 1-inch strip first. So it's oriented the same as it looks on the booklet. Then I need a 4-inch. And that should leave 7. The 7-inch piece goes with layout number 1. This 1-inch piece goes with layout number 3. I think that's a new pile for us. And then I have this 4-inch piece. I need to cut these in half. We're going to have mats again, so they're 4x6. And these will go in number 5. So you should have a start to all 5 piles now around your space. That brings us to the next plum stripes paper. This one is probably the most complicated cut that we have. We need to cut these 1-inch pieces first here on the left before we cut the rest of the paper. They show the paper on your booklet with the flower cluster in the top right. I'm going to flip that all the way around so it's in the bottom left, and then I'm going to cut these 3 1-inch pieces, 4A, 4B, 4C. Before we move on to the rest of it, I have the 3 pieces. One of them goes to layout number 3. I'm going to go ahead and put that over my number 3 pile. 2 of them go with layout number 5, and that's the one I just started with my mats. I'm going to put those over my number 5 pile. And that leaves me this big piece left. We need to turn this 90 degrees because we need to cut the bottom off. It's 5 inches and 7 inches. They do suggest you cut the 7 inches before cutting the rest, so you can rotate it. It was easier for me mentally to actually cut the 5 inches at the bottom because I know that I want that 5 inches off the light part of the paper, and that's going to leave me 7 on the other side. So if you have the flower cluster in the bottom right corner, we could cut it at 5, and you wouldn't have to have your arm up for this if you don't have it up already. We are getting just a little bit of this floral piece down there in the corner, so don't second guess yourself. That's right. And then once we have this 5-inch piece, we're going to rotate that. It should be 9 inches. And so we're going to cut this in half, and it's going to be 4.5. So we just got 2 4.5 by 5 mats out of here. That will go in layout number 3. Now we're down to this 7-inch piece with the floral. We need to cut off pieces 4D and 4E. Those are 1-inch pieces, and we need them off the light side of the paper. We need them to come off over here. So if you like to do it this way, you can cut 1 inch there. I've already said I tried to do it one way. I just really prefer to cut 1 inches over here. I'm going to cut 2 1-inch pieces off the right. These pieces go with pile number 5, which was the same as 4B, 4C. And now we're left again with one piece with our floral cluster. We need to cut this on the diagonal. And I don't want to cut across my flowers. I want most of the flowers on one side. The way I cut my diagonal is look at your cutting line. I'm cutting on number 2 here on my mat. I'm going to do the point to the point on the dotted line. I'm not going to start against the point because odds are I'll push against the paper. I'm going to start somewhere and then go up and then come down. If your paper shifts a little bit, sometimes it does. Sometimes your line gets a little off. It's fine. We're going to cover this edge with paper. So as long as you're pretty close, you're good. And these 2 diagonal pieces will go with layout number 3. That was the hard piece. The rest of this is pretty easy to finish up. We're going to use the brown and plaid papers. It's the same paper. It doesn't matter which one you pick. It doesn't matter which side is up. The plaid is plaid, the brown is brown. We need to cut 2 3/4 inch pieces, and then we have 3 1/4. So don't get confused. These 2 on the left are smaller than the ones on the right. So 2 3/4. 2 3/4. That should leave 6.5. We're going to double check. We're going to cut that in half, 3.25. The two smaller pieces we cut first are going to go in pile number 5. And these number 2, these pieces, the 3.25, go in pile number 2. Now I got one sheet left of brown. I thought the way they did this cutting guide was a little confusing. I'm not sure why they didn't just rotate it first. If you notice, 6A and 6B both are a 2-inch cut, but it makes it look like it wants you to cut this 1 inch first and then flip it. I'm going to go ahead and turn it. So I'm going to cut 2 inches off a side. The brown is the brown. It doesn't really matter which way the paper's turned, but I'm going to cut 2 inches first. If I rotate this piece, then I can cut off 1 inch for 6A, and it's going to leave me with 11 inches for piece B. All of these pieces are going to go with layout number 4. Now I have a 10-inch piece, and I need to cut the 1-inch pieces here, C and D, and that's going to leave me a 10 by 10. So you can do this, whichever direction you want. I'm going to cut 1-inch pieces off one of the sides. I'm going to make sure, I'm going to double check myself. So it should be 12 inches. You're at 12 inches. I'm going to cut one. That will take me down to 10. And that leaves me the 10 by 10 piece. And again, these are all layout number 4. If you messed up any of your cuts, it's fine. Just keep them. You can adapt it. We'll make it work. I'd like to pretend like this is the first time I didn't make a wrong cut, but that's not true. I actually cut one of the wrong floral pieces to start because I didn't read the directions first well enough. Do you guys usually start cutting and then you find the directions later, right? I mean, the directions come after all the cutting. I'm really bad about cutting before I read anything. So we've done all of these, and now it's just saying, gather the rest of the stuff and then put it together. Got it. Okay. So we're going to start with layout number 1, and this is with the plum cardstock as our base paper. If you did not buy the sampler, or you already used your sampler, you had to get the sampler to get the booklet. If you don't like the plum, I should say, you can choose any base paper that you might like. I'm going to grab my number 1 pile. That's my number 2 pile. My number 1 pile, we're going to dry fit it first, of course, to make sure we have the right pieces. You can see we have these big floral pieces, and then we should have the green to go on the top and the bottom. We're going to adhere the green pieces to the bottom first. I will say this too, it drives me crazy, but it is just the way it is. The cardstock, my cardstock is just a hair bigger than 12 inches. And so that means when we're adhering our paper strips, you are going to see the color of cardstock at one side or the other. If that bothers you and you want to clean cut it later, I just suggest orienting everything towards the center of your layout, and you can always clean cut the outside if your cardstock is a little long. There is a margin of allowance, as with most things in life, and sometimes we really notice those little hairs of difference when we're layering paper. And we all know there are more important things in life to get worked up about than our paper not being exactly 12 inches. But we all manage to let it burn us a little bit anyways. Am I right? We all get a little worked up when our papers aren't the same 12 inches. We have to remind ourselves that we're all fine. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, you can see my plum. I got about 1/8 of an inch over here, or 1/16 of an inch or so showing up. Then I'm going to adhere my floral pieces right on top of the green. Megan and I love to get our panties in a wad over little stuff, but it's all in fun. It just allows us to be worked up about things that we actually care about and not pay attention to the bigger world issues, because sometimes those feel too stressful to be mad about. So I'm orienting these towards the center. This is also where you're going to find out, when you're adhering things above and below each other, if one of your cuts was a little bit of hair off, this is where you're going to notice it. And then you can just overlap if you need to. Try as I might, my straight cuts aren't always exactly the straightest. And then we're going to adhere our pieces along the top. It's easier for me, especially sitting, to turn my paper. You may find too, I'll stop here. You might want, if you want this green to be a little bit lower, you can see on your booklet where the photos are going to sit. If you think you're going to change things around, you're welcome to bring this green strip down. You could adhere this down above this one. If you wanted the top open, you could adhere it somewhere else along the middle. It will just add a different layered look. You could find a chain style BMC that you like. Our BMCs, the thinner ones, are about 1 inch or so, and they would layer nicely on these 1-inch pieces. Maybe you want to get a little leafy vine border punch and put something along there. You could punch it in, a gold shimmer or something to pop out. I'm sure we like to get worked up about these things because they're actually within our control. And most things in general we like to get worked up about we can't control, but we can control our paper. Or so we think. So that's all there is to it here in this one. And if you're one who, if you want to go ahead and pull out your mats, there is an orange frame one that they used. And then for the minis, the embellishments, we'll go back through those at the end. If you're watching this later in your video and you're starting and stopping and adding to it, like I said, you could have pulled the green strip down here. This is also a space where you could punch if you got the wooden fence. I love the wooden fence in brown shimmer. I think it really pops it. You could put your fence row along here if you wanted to. It'd really look nice. But that is layout number 1. We'll come back to the embellishments to sort out at the end. Just easier than having all those little pieces all over your desk. We're going to turn to project number 2. So this one is the caramel. It was really hard for me to say caramel and not caramel. I do live next to the town of Carmel, and I am enough of a Midwest country girl that I still act like I'm eating caramels and not caramels. How many of you eat caramel versus caramel? I don't know if there's actually different things. I'm pretty sure it's called caramel, and I always eat caramels. Like Werther's are like a hard caramel. And I don't know if that's a Midwest thing. Actually, I'm not sure what Megan says because she's technically Midwest.
I would say like a caramel apple.
Yeah, I say caramel, not caramel apple. Okay, so for this one, for layout number 2, I got my pile, but now I'm trying to figure out where my little skinny strips slid down to. You need these little 1/2 inch strips. There we go. My pile slid. We're going to adhere the skinny strips down the sides and then the plaid strip next to it. And then they gave us a couple of mats, and we're going to pull out an additional mat. So you'll first want to adhere these here. And once again, depending on your photos or your just choices, you can pull these away from the edge if you want to see a little bit more of that caramel coming out on the side. This is also a spot too that if you want to punch with an edge style, you could punch this piece. The only design thing you're going to cover up is we are going to put a mat up here. So you're just going to see the punch piece below or above it, but that's definitely an option for you. I realized too that I've obviously, you guys all know, I've been so consumed with the 2 events I just hosted. And then this week I spent catching up, and I'm going to Chicago for the weekend. And now I have a funeral at the beginning of next week. But I remembered the other day that this is apple season. I'm like, when are the kids and I going to go to the orchard? There's an orchard by where we used to live that I love their apple cobbler. Love it. And so I need to figure out when we're going to go down there. It's too far to usually go after school, and the traffic would be atrocious. So it's really better to go on the weekend. But there is a Apple store next to me. So Conner Prairie, some of the advisors that came for my advisory retreat were able to go over to Conner Prairie because they had the Jupiter Balloon Festival. It's a living nature museum, basically a bunch of outdoor stuff. But they have a Apple store, and so I will sometimes go over there and get caramel apples. They have ones that are like covered in toffee and nuts and all the yummy things. And I'm actually thinking maybe that should be my reward for having classes. Maybe I'll run over there when this is over and get a little treat. Sandy's saying caramels are where you eat and caramel is a color. I'll go with that. I don't know if it's true or not. I should ask chat. And then if you want to add the mat, so there's a mat in here that it has the side of it that says Hello Fall. And they cut this in half. I actually like my photo trimmer to cut these mats in half. I'm just not sure which pile it's in today. So I've been using my trimmer. Sometimes I don't get the color quite right on the half. And then these mats can adhere here. One thing I did differently than their layout was I did pull this one down. I wanted to see a little bit of this plaid above it and below it over here, so it has a little bit more of a matted layer effect. If you want to follow the booklet, you can push it all the way to the top. And my mat is slightly thinner than my strip. If that bothers you, if it's like too little, you could cut your mat down a little bit more so it looks like it's sitting on there kind of framed. And then over here. For the mats, they also used, so the back of these are the light colored, are going to be 4x6 mats. And then there's these 2 green ones that we need to pull out. One of them says the harvesting memories on there. They do cover this with a photo for the corner. So these are the two additional mats. I wasn't really feeling the off-centered. I have trouble, like some of you, tilting my photos, especially when I don't know what photo it will be. So I did adhere mine straight up and down, which you'll see a little bit more when we do the embellishments. So I'm not going to adhere these yet. We'll come back to that. I don't really know what other photos I'm going to put on here. They show you spots on the booklet for additional 4x6s, but these obviously can move around. And then you might want to adhere them based on how you put your embellishments on. So that's layout number 2. Pretty simple so far. I really like layout number 3. I think it was my favorite. It might be because it's avocado base mixed with some purple plum, and it just is a very, I think, appealing layout. This is our pile number 3. It's going to have our triangles in it. We have the 2 purple photo mats, and we have our 1-inch purple strips. So the first step will be to adhere the triangles in the corners. Make sure you get some repo tape on the tip of that triangle so it doesn't lift up as easily, catch on things until you get it photos on it and get it in your book. I knew I was gonna run out of tape. Got another one waiting. And stick this up in the corner over here. Okay, now I need to adhere my purple 1-inch strips. It's going to go along the edge here, and you're going to notice you don't actually have a lot of leeway to adhere it so that you're covering the top and bottom corners. So you have just a little bit to make sure that you're covering the whole bottom edge of the paper and the side. You don't want tape on the very ends edges yet because we need to fold that and adhere it. I'm going to adhere this along the triangle. If you messed up your diagonal cut, this is where you can cut it, cover it with the paper. Then I'm going to flip it over. I'm not going to straight cut these. I'm going to fold them across the back. I'm just going to put a little bit of repo tape there and fold this over. I like to do that when I can because I don't have kind of that open cut edge. It doesn't get caught as easily. I like how we have just a little bit of that foliage peeking under. I need to do the other one, of course. Make sure I'm off each edge completely. Get these folded over. And then for photo mats, we have the 2 purple. And then there's another purple one that can be cut in half. And then there are two sayings, Seasons of Change and Harvest Blessings. They cut these in half and then they become photo mats. You can see they've kind of made the words translucent with the measurements of the photos on top of it on the booklet. You can cut this one in half too. And if you don't want to cut this one in half, maybe you want to save it for a 4x6 photo. You definitely will have room on here whenever you actually add photos to keep this one whole if you want to wait and not cut that apart yet. Again, we're going to come back to the embellishments. That's project number 3. Got 2 more. Like I said, these aren't too bad. I really like number 4. This one's going to be on the pumpkin solid base. And then pile number 4. I have some big pieces in this pile and some little pieces. I'm going to sort them out. We have the green one that's going to go on the left, brown one on the right, the skinny brown one's top and bottom, a little plaid over here, a little green, and a plaid. So it does tone down the orange. We won't see a lot of orange except on the edges, which is nice. Orange in moderation. I love orange, but it can be a lot at times. I did agree with the first step, which was they adhered this piece, the 6E, this big brown piece. We're going to adhere this one first. This is the 10 by 10 piece. So we're going to adhere this centered on the left edge. So it's 1 inch from the bottom, 1 inch from the top. I'm going to pull out my real tape because I don't want to run out of repo. When we come over here to this side, they wanted you to adhere these 2 pieces first and then put the green down the middle. That's assuming that we all made our cuts correctly, which we all know sometimes we make mistakes or sometimes they're not exact. So I recommend adhering this piece first, the green one. It is 8 inches and I'm going to adhere this centered between the 2 and the 10. The other option is to adhere this top one first at the 1 inch and then this 2 below it. So there's 2 methods that you can do. If you want to make sure that this line continues all the way across the top of your page, you could adhere this one first. If you wanted to ensure that whatever you have here is centered on your page, then you adhere this one first. And then you could adhere these strips above and below. Or work your way down. Then we are going to adhere to A, which is the other green one. So then we have this piece that's going to look like it's continuing this piece across this page. So if you want, you can push your pieces together and adhere this one so it lines up with the piece that it came off of. Might help you to stand up if you're struggling to line these up sitting. If you need a measurement spot, it's 2 inches down from the top to match the 2 inches that this one is down. Then we want to grab our plaid pieces. So it's the 6B. It's going to start at the edge of the green and go all the way to the edge of the page. And this one I adhered 5 inches down. So on your mat, you're going to see the 7 if you have your mat oriented the way I do with the CM that I can read. So this one's going to sit between the 7 and the 5. I'm going to rotate mine. It's going to be easier for me to see it going up the page. So down here, since I rotated it, I can see the 5 and the 7 here, and it's going to go up the middle. So I can see the top of my mat. I have the 5 and the 7, and here's where I'm going to notice that my pumpkin cardstock base is longer than my paper. Then I need to adhere this little tiny little plaid piece is going to go over here. Same thing, we're going to adhere that between the 5 and the 7. One of my cuts is obviously slightly shorter than the other, so I can, if I don't straight cut the edge of my cardstock here, it makes this piece look uneven. So I'm actually just going to tuck it up in there a little bit. Should use this ruler on this side. I'm going to tuck it a little bit so that the little bit of cardstock showing looks straight. Then we need some mats. So we have these pieces left from the ones we just cut on the one before, the sentiments. They have the brown and the green. And there's 2 brown mats. That can be for photos. I'm going to go ahead and adhere these because the spacing's pretty obvious. I'm just going to come off the edge here, about 1/4 inch or so. And these are centered, from the top and the bottom. You can also save them if you want to use them some other way. The left side, they don't have mats. It's just a wide open slate for your photos. You can spread these mats apart a little bit if you want to see a little bit of the orange plaid peeking through. Or you can pull them closer together if you don't want to see plaid, as much plaid. And then once you've determined this spacing, you can adhere these. We will put an embellishment cluster down here in the corner. So I am going to leave a little bit more space than I would have if nothing was going there. I like to keep my photos and my mats pretty tight. We all need to be taking some 4x3 vertical photos if we're going to use these layouts as is. Okay, that's it until we get to the embellishments. And our final set will use the canary. This one is a little bright on my eyes, but we're going to cover up a lot of the yellow. You should have some plum strips for the top and the bottom. Shorter plum strips for the top. And then we have our plaid pieces. And a couple of photo mats, and then we're going to add a lot more mats. So you can start by adhering the bottom or the top. I'm going to start with the bottom. Again, this is another spot with these 1-inch strips that if you have a favorite border maker or chain style border punch that's on the skinnier end, you can adhere borders down these strips. And rotate this and adhere my short strips along the top. I didn't pull it out, but the rustic truck punch, if you have that from last year, is probably a little taller than 1 inch, but you could layer it there along the bottom. Now I'm going to adhere my plaid piece. Might as well just rotate it all the way around. It's going to adhere next to this and then go up. Means now I need the rest of the mats. We're going to use the rest of the ones you should have left in your pile, which are the mum ones. There's 3 with mums, and then they have side by side. So they showed the mums, and then they used these 4x3 colored ones for photos. But to cut them all apart. Do this now, do it later. It's up to you. And then again, here at the bottom. Oh wait, there should be. It does have two plum mats. Oh, these are the plum. I'm sorry. The white on the project booklet isn't the back side. It isn't this light side. It's just a photo placement. So they're showing the plum side of the paper, and then this mums across the bottom. We're going to go ahead and get our embellishments out, and then we're going to work our way back through the pile of layouts, because the embellishments on here actually lend themselves a little bit more to adhering them as we go. So you have this nice full pack of the regular Croptoberfest ones. And then we have our little pack of layered ones. I'm going to dig through these because I need to find the borders that it shows. There's two sets of these mum borders, one longer than the other. And we want the longer ones. Oh, mine are stuck together. Should have two of these. And then they show the little stake from the layered ones up here also. And the fall blooms, yellow. Those are purple mum with a stem. At the bottom of my pile, literally. And then this little, what do you call these? They're like, you stick it in the ground. What are those called? I'm completely blanking. But you want this one, the light colored ones. And I think that's it on this one. A stake. Yes, thank you, Heather. It's a stake. Which I think I just said that for this one. It's the same thing, a little stake. Okay. Okay, when I adhered this mat with the border, I adhered the mat 2 inches down from the top. So I went down to the 10 here, and then 1/2 inch from the edge. And this is just my spacing. You're welcome to customize this at this point for whatever you're going to use them for. So 2 inches down, about 1/2 inch from the edge. And then I can adhere my little mums. If you like to add foam squares, this is definitely the spot to do it. You can put foam underneath these, or the thin foam. I am not, I won't lie, my albums are always way fatter than they need to be, so I don't usually use a ton of foam. I'm gonna adhere my border just enough to cover the top edge. I wanna make sure I have room to slide a photo up underneath the edge of that. I can stick this green garden stake. The little post of it, I'm gonna stick behind the mat. Figure out a spot that it can fit. And then I can adhere the title next to it. Again, foam would work very nicely to layer these if you want to. Same thing over here. 2 inches down. 1/2 inch in. With my mum border. And like I said, I was struggling. Do you want to put anything crooked on these? So when I adhered my mats, I straightened them all up and I just lined them up across the bottom. I started just like a 1/4 inch from the edge here. So this will be a photo, a mom, a photo, and then I stuck the little stake with the mom here in the corner. So if you want to follow the booklet and off kilter them, totally up to you. I wasn't feeling it today. And then you also have room here. You can put 4x6 photos if you want, or smaller ones in between. If you want to fill in, as we go, we have the mom punch, you have the not the field, the wagon with the fence, the wagon, the mom option. So I have some wagons punched in brown shimmer. You could easily tuck those in wherever. And then we'll talk about the mums, another technique for the mums, but you can punch multiple colors of these and layer them and add your clusters, wherever you want around. You fill in some of this white spot. But that is layout number 5 completed. Let's pull these together so they don't fall. I'm going to save one set of these without the mats on there. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with 2 sets, but it'll give me a little bit more leverage. I'm going to set mine to the side. So we're going to work our way backwards, back to layout number 4. Now we got our embellishments pulled out. You can think about if you want to add any additional punches or anything anywhere. This is wide open space for photos, or you can cut mats and coordinating colors. But they have the wagon that's carrying mums. See the wheels. A yellow mom in a pot. Then there's the brown crate with a pumpkin and the corn next to it. And a little title that says, A Harvest of Beauty. When they adhere this one, they're going to tuck the stake down under the green and the little cluster next to it. And adhere these down in the corner. On this side, you can already see mine on top. It's the orange mom with the pumpkin next to it. I do like how they had these already layered, ready to go. That's why we space these a little bit, because we're going to put that mom right there with a photo here, here, and here. So that's layout number 4. If I were going to add punches to here, you could put a fence row along here. And again, we'll talk about the mums in general at the very end if you want to add some layered mums. Backing up to our avocado. Now is the time you can go pull out the other little borders of mums that we got. If you decided not to cut this mat apart, then you don't have a spot for these yet, but you could layer them around the photo mats you do choose. There's the yellow layered mum that came out of the mini pack. We have the Making Memories Bloom. And then you should have an orange mum that creates the cluster here. We cut that one apart, one would go up here. We would have a mat here and here. Same over here. If we had cut this one apart, it would be over here with this on the bottom. And then there's the basket of mums and pumpkins and the other stake that would go in the corner. So when you would hear them, it would look like this. If you don't adhere the mats ahead of time, you can see there's a lot of space in here for more photos than just the spots that we got. Then backing up to project number 2. This is the one where they went off kilter like we talked about. I straightened mine up. I adhered these about 1/2 inch off the edge. You could also use the green side if you'd rather have the green. This one up here, I did 1/2 inch from the edge. And about 3/4 inches down from the top. That gives me space down here to have that upright. Then wish to be a wagon wheel. The orange mum. You have the set of purple and orange mums over here. It should be the falling for fall somewhere. And then a little mum pumpkin cluster for the top. Oh, this is a layered one. It's your last layered one. So you can see here, I adhered mine top and bottom. I did not make them off center and have my embellishments spaced around. These are gorgeous colors, and the papers I thought worked. I didn't mean to pull that off. Worked really well together. And then our last one. This is the one I mentioned, pulling the fence in. To adhere your fence up from there. And then down here in the corner, we have the green title bar. And there's a yellow mum, kind of fades into the ones in the corner. And over here, there's one that says Autumn's Bouquet and a purple mum. These are a little bit harder to adhere ahead of time because they don't have photo mats. They're just giving you wide open space for your photos. So you can adhere these now or save them to cluster around whatever you do. So let's talk about the mum punch. That leaves you a fair amount of pieces that, unless I just can't see it on the handout or unused, you can save those for another fall layout. The mum punch punches 3 shapes. This is optional. They didn't include it in the booklet. We listed it as optional. It really is just for additional embellishment. If you have the Grateful Harvest tone on tone paper. You're going to get some nice textured punches out of that. Or you can just go with cardstock, the ones we've already used, or the shimmers work really well in here. The parakeet shimmer, the gold shimmer. I think I'm out of the gold on here. This yellow is from the Grateful Harvest pack. Of course, I mentioned brown shimmer for wagons. And then there is an orange shimmer. So orange, gold, parakeet. We'll cover those bases there. You can layer these to get different effects. I don't know that I've seen Judy on here, but Judy was at my retreat last weekend when we did a make and take using these papers. It wasn't the booklet, but she started layering on top of these and the prints in the corner, and it turned out really pretty. You know, she basically treated this big mum as the base and then was layering mum pieces on top of that. So some of you might enjoy adding some dimension just on the paper itself. Tuck in some wagons or whatever. I want to show you. So on the, we don't need that. This was the make and take we did last weekend, but at the advisor retreat the week before, another advisor, Jerry Jackson, had already posted in an advisor group of how to trim up your mum if you truly want to get little mum petals. Because if you actually have mums, you'll know they don't have as big of petals as that punch shows. So if you get some microtip scissors and you cut between the petals and down the petal, you know, just take these little cuts into the center. It's a little bit of fussy cutting. You can kind of fringe up the edges of the mums, and maybe it looks a little bit more realistic. Or you can take the simpler route and just layer without cutting. It does add some extra dimension. And again, if you are someone who likes foam, you can layer these pieces with foam, or you can keep them all flat. Depends how much time you want to spend. If you are creating a lot of mum clusters, this would take you a little bit of time, but maybe you have all the time, or you're just watching a show and you want to go around, and then you can kind of, you know, fringe up your edges a little bit to give you that layered look. So I can pull mine off this page. On this page also, I double layered the wagon. I punched two, one in caramel, one in the brown shimmer, and layered them to give it a shadow effect. And then someone else also had the idea, if you take the two wagons and flip one of them, and you know, you can cut off the bottom little piece if you want, but you can get kind of a bigger wagon, if you will, by flipping one and adhering them. This would mostly just work with cardstock, and then you could, you know, sit things in your wagon, or maybe you want to go through and see, really have embellishments left to fit, so you're kind of left to your wagon. The other punches to remind you of are the gourd punch. Did you guys a gourd punch? Was that last year? You could punch some gourds and sit them in your wagon. Of course, we have the rustic truck. Yeah, Heather, the daisy punch too. You know, we've had daisy punches in the past would layer well. So that's the fun you can get into. Those are the rabbit holes of mums that you can get to get that layered effect. And then if you got the die cut machine that we were prototyping out for this year, that's where this Happy Memories came from. It was die cuts in that pack. It can sit on those flowers too if you punch it in white and pop out the top. This is the border that we made last week for the make and take. It was wheat fields layered with the fence, and then we created little clusters there. So some additional uses for the punches if you got those with Grateful Harvest. Oh yeah, this was the one, because this one is a plum base, the mum. So this one's all cardstock too, with the plum, orange shimmer, and gold shimmer. when you do your mats, these were cut with a decal blade on top of it's a double mat. You know, the blades can offer some additional texture too. If you want to add that to your, and then if you have the gems, how many of you collect the gems and never use them? You can pull them out, find your gold ones, maybe your purple, or if you have orange ones, and plop those in the middle of your mums if you really want to get mom happy. So those are all of the layouts. I actually do have mums. I bought like 5 of them off of Cooper's choir fundraiser, and I'm trying real hard to get them to bloom. The problem is I got them right before my weekend retreat, so they weren't watered for the first few days, but I'm watering them every day now, and I think maybe they'll bloom. It is hard, it's dry. I don't have the best luck with mums. Do you guys put your mums in the ground? Do they come back every year? I feel like they're always in pots, so they're always kind of dry. Um, I he is a junior, so I probably would buy them next year through the fundraiser again. And if I really can't figure out how to do the mums in 3 years, then I'll be done with it. But this is one tip. If you have mums that one of my customers gave me last weekend that she read somewhere, if you have a shallow tray, like from cat litter or something like that, and just fill it with water and let your mum sit in there to pull the water up from the bottom, it's happier because you can't overwater a mum apparently. And I assume that if they were here in this time of year, they're used to being dry, which is not true. They like a lot of water. So I've been looking for, I know I have one of those boot trays, like you sit your boots in the winter. I know I have one somewhere and I keep looking for it because I'm going to put the water in there and then sit my mums in there and see. Um, that's my goal. And then if they survive and they bloom, I'll take pictures of them and put them on one of these layouts. We'll see how it goes. I'll let you guys know. To be determined. Yeah, so they are perennials, but I swear I put them in the ground and they never come back up here, and I don't know why. But I guess I could try again. I don't know. Our soil's not the greatest. It has a lot of clay. We'll see. You can share your mom tips in the group with everyone. Then we'll have a reason to use our flowers. So that is it for this class. Hopefully that gives you enough tips and tricks to use for your punches. And I'll give you back to Megan. Yeah. No, she says no. She wants me to finish. Okay. Well, this is going to go to YouTube. You can share it with whomever. Obviously, it was not a paid class. If you have any customers or friends or anyone that got the project recipe kit and the booklet, feel free to share the video with them if it helps. Maybe it's not helpful. And other than that, the bundle, everything is still available from CM. Yes. So you have a while. You can still purchase it if you want more sets. You can only get the embellishments and the mats in the project bundle, and that's true even for advisors. So you're not going to find anyone selling that stuff alone unless they're splitting up their bundle. Advisors could not access those even by themselves. So is there anything else that you want to add? She says no. Okay, so on the Power Hour email, I did list out the dates for Power Hour in October and November and December. I don't think we've actually ever put out 3 months of Power Hour dates together ever. And I'm sure, I don't know, I'm not sure. Usually we do a Christmas PageMakers. We actually haven't talked about it. It's not launched, to be determined. But it is almost October, and that's usually when we do see Christmas stuff come out. So we will probably see some Halloween next week, whatever Creative Memories is doing for Halloween. And hopefully we get a little bit of Thanksgiving too. I actually take more photos at Thanksgiving than I do for Halloween. But Thanksgiving could also go on the mum pages. I think I just need some turkeys. I don't know. Okay, well, we will see you all in the group, and you're welcome to share any layouts or tips or tricks you have. These are not secret layouts, so feel free to share away. Okay, see y'all next time.